I know we've talked about Polymarket ad nauseum on this show, but there has been an update on the saga of Polymarket because their CEO just had his house raided by the FBI and his phone seized. So a lot of people are kind of, you know, analyzing this because the FBI didn't give like a specific reason, right? Because they're most likely people are saying that they're investigating a potential for election interference because as we know, Polymarket kind of predicted a Trump win a long time before the polls did. And even when the polls kind of was like being really wishy-washy and saying it was 50-50, Polymarket was saying no, it was like 65, almost 70% Trump is going to win the election. So in retrospect, after the election, we have the benefit of hindsight, and it seems like Polymarket was more correct, was way more correct than the polls. So you know, there's multiple theories as to why this was the case and why the FBI is investigating it. Because if you look at it from maybe the FBI side, and again, I don't know anything for sure, I'm just speculating, but if you approach it from the FBI side, they're like, okay, well, first of all, Polymarket is banned for US users. So US clients are not supposed to use it. US residents are not supposed to use it. And it's like, you know, you have that story of the French trader who bet, I think it was like $40 million or something on Trump winning. And, you know, there's like things you can argue that what if people were trying to dump money into Polymarket to make it seem like Trump was going to win to like pump up his odds and get his base excited. I mean, there's a lot of things that people are tossing around, but the FBI has actually acted on these things, and it appears that they at least find some credence to these rumors, enough that they're willing to seize the guy's phone and like, you know, raid the guy's house and take his phone. The CEO of Polymarket, that is, I think his name is something Copland. But yeah, anyway, so people on the other side, though, the guys who are on Polymarket's side are saying, hey, like, this is political retribution, right? Because we know the Dems and the FBI, you know, they have a special connection, and then they like the FBI was the ones that raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago house, and that was like a very controversial thing for them to have done, to investigate a separate case where, you know, they're saying that Trump took some classified documents or whatever. So it's not like the FBI has not done things that are clearly, you know, politically motivated before. So people are saying that this is politically motivated. Again, like maybe we'll discuss this a little bit later when I pass the mic back to you guys. But let me just share with you what Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, said. And, you know, Brian Armstrong is usually kind of a soft-spoken professional guy, but he went pretty much all out on Twitter. And he posted, it's like, WTF is wrong with this administration. So he's coming at it from the perspective, it's like the Democratic Biden-Harris administration did this for sure, like 100%. That's what he's implying, right? It's like WTF is wrong with this administration. This will backfire, and they just made Polymarket even more powerful. And this was in response to, again, like the news that the FBI raided the guy's house, the CEO of Polymarket's house, and took his phone. And yeah, that's news number one. And I promised we would stop talking about politics, but there's been a lot of politics news, so we'll just quickly go through a little bit of some other news. So another piece of politics news is Trump visiting the White House to meet with Biden. And I don't know about you guys, but Biden looks the happiest he's ever looked in his life meeting Trump. Like, so the rumor is that Biden has disputes with the Democratic Party and with Kamala Harris for, you know, pushing him out of the race when he didn't want to leave. And because Trump won, it's like a big FU to the Democratic Party because, you know, it's like, hey, you pushed me out, look what happened, right? So yeah, we're living in this timeline where Biden and Trump seem like they're best friends. which is not a timeline that I pictured that I would be in, but it appears that that is the case. And like look at Joe Biden's wife, Jill Biden. She looks really happy too in this photo. So I don't know. Maybe you guys can opine on that as well. And lastly, uh, Trump has appointed Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk to establish a new department called the Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE. So DOGE is now an official government organization, which is tasked to eliminate government waste, and they're probably going to fire a bunch of government employees, right? So there's that, and Elizabeth Warren is not too happy about that. So she, upon hearing the news that this Doge thing is going to be a thing, she says, the Office of Government Efficiency is off to a great start with split leadership, two people doing the work of one person. Yeah, this seems really efficient. And Elon Musk hit back saying, unlike you, neither of us are being paid. So it is very efficient indeed. Doge will do great things for the American people. Let history be the judge. So yeah, fighting words from both of them. So we'll have to see how it turns out. But yeah, one of the questions that I would ask you guys is, what do you guys think of this Doge government department? Do you think it's going to work? How do you feel about Vivek and Elon leading it? So that's one of the questions. And the other question is that, do you want to respond on the Polymarket thing? Do you think is political retribution of Polymarket predicting that Trump is going to win and the Dems are upset about that? Or do you think that people are just reading too much into conspiracy theories, that this is not a thing? What do you think of Brian Armstrong's response to that? Because he seems to think that it's political retribution. And yeah, I don't know if you want to comment on the Biden being like super happy to see Trump kind of thing, but I just thought I'd throw that in there because it's kind of a meme. But yeah, anyways, who wants to take it away?
I'll go through the list. I mean, the Polymarket thing is just interesting. Like, it doesn't smell right. It's just like this administration and the Democrats using lawfare is something they like can't shut off. And I'm just basing it on Brian Armstrong's commentary, but like, they can't shut off the lawfare. They like, I'm assuming that during the election, the Biden administration like had their DOJ look into Polymarket, and now the DOJ is probably just like looking deeper into it because they can. Like, once they got permission to look into Elon Musk's affairs, they started using the regulatory state to attack him, and he started getting lawsuits. They sued SpaceX for not hiring illegal immigrants, even though SpaceX isn't allowed to hire anybody but U.S. citizens because it's like basically a weapons contractor. And so, I mean, I just think that this is like the. I mean, a lot of people like to use the word deep state, but it's like, yeah, it's like the professional managerial state, like out of control. I assume that Polymarket, they're gonna probably give them like a slap on the wrist or some kind of fine for like allowing Americans to be on the platform, because like Americans found a way around like by using VPNs and DeFi and that kind of stuff. And I don't really believe this theory that the Trump administration was like betting on the Polymarket. So the Trump campaign was betting on the Polymarket to try to sway the election. Like, I just don't think that would work really well. I mean, we saw that allegedly in the polling, where the polls were obviously trying to like push people towards the Democrats, and it blew up in their faces. So if this is politically motivated, it's like one of those things, like usual, it's just going to blow up in the Democrats' faces again. It's a little upsetting because it seems like the Democrats are willing to use their like friends within the permanent government state to continue doing its bidding for them during the Trump administration. So we'll see how the Trump administration handles the Justice Department going forward. And yeah, I mean, so we'll see what happens. There's a lot of unknowns in this Polymarket story. At first, I was kind of like not gonna say anything too one-sided on it, but then with Brian Armstrong's comments, him putting himself out there and saying like it's politically motivated like usual, it's just disappointing to me to see that the Democrats just can't learn any lessons They haven't learned anything, and they're continuing not to learn anything. And on the DOGE department, I think it's interesting. We'll see what happens. I don't have any major predictions. The only thing I will say is that if Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have a major impact on major cuts to government expenditure, that's likely going to be pretty good for the U.S. dollar, which means it's going to put a lot of pressure on the Canadian federal government to do something similar. Like if you're actually able to get a 75% headcount reduction, that is going to be real. That's going to be reflected in bond markets, and that's going to hurt the Canadian dollar relative to the U.S. dollar. And I also believe that some of these announcements are probably already hurting the sentiment of the Canadian dollar because we're seeing it go down since Trump was elected. So it'll be interesting to see if Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk can have a impact on the United States federal government, which is grossly overfunded and is mostly just waste. And I think that's true for a lot of Western governments these days. And I think that we're in need for retooling, and this might be the retooling that is needed. It's going to be hard to break through these public sector unions and all the other stuff that gets in the way of anybody basically attacking the administrative state, but we'll see what happens. And Biden happy. It's generally Biden just produces the best memes. I remember when Trump was first elected, there was a lot of Biden memes going around, making fun of having memes of him like whispering in Obama's ear. So I just think it's funny that even in this loss, he still has the best memes. And I think he's clearly happy about the result based on the fact that he was kind of kicked off the ballot. I don't think he was going to win because the guy couldn't get through a debate. I mean, he was. We all saw what happened in July, so I don't think that he was going to win anyways. But I can see why him and Joe Biden are happy because they felt like it was a bit of a coup. So it's kind of fun to see. That's my comments on those things. I think I covered everything.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I agree with what you said, and I don't have too much to add on this myself. I just, in terms of the Doge thing, I'll just say I'm pretty optimistic. But as you said, there's a lot of trouble and there's a lot of barriers that could potentially get in the way. So we'll have to see how it goes. But if you look at, I'll just say this, right? If you look at Elon Musk's record, like the man just doesn't lose, right? So I have a hard time believing that he'll fail at this if he's so committed. And he's been saying that he wants to do this for a long time now. And Vivek Ramaswamy, I didn't know that this person existed until, when he was running for the Republican nominee. And that was the first time I've heard of him. And so far I have pretty positive impressions of him. I think he's a really smart guy, and he's really focused on this government efficiency thing just as much as Elon, right? He's been talking about it for a long time, reducing government waste, reducing government spending and all of this stuff. So I'm pretty optimistic on this. In terms of and one last thing, like the fact that Elizabeth Warren is so hostile towards this idea, I think that means that Elon and Vivek, they're going on the right path. Because it's like that old video game adage, right? If you're playing a video game and you're encountering enemies, then that means you're going the correct direction. Right? So the worst thing is like you're playing a video game, you don't meet any enemies and you don't know what your objective is, and you're just going nowhere and you're wasting your time. So I think that the fact that they're pushing on this, and then Elizabeth Warren is starting to panic, then I think that is a really good sign that they're onto something.
Yeah, I think it's the right signal considering that she's had so many public losses with Bitcoin and her fight with Elon and all this other stuff. So it's the right signal. And I'll add one more thing. I think it's also interesting that both Vivek and Elon have both been in CEO positions where they've had to deal directly with regulators. The FDA in the case for Vivek, because he was a pharmaceutical guy, and then Elon is interesting because of SpaceX and Tesla are very highly regulated industries. So these guys have a lot of experience dealing with regulators. They know how much waste there is, and they know how much BS regulators bring to the table. It's mostly just adding costs for companies and innovators. So they're coming at this from a really interesting perspective because it's not like they're they're foreign to how government works. They work with government, so it's going to be interesting to see how that perspective plays out.
I guess maybe one more thing that I was going to add on the Polymarket thing. Yeah, I think it's clear that this is somewhat politically motivated, right? Like I don't know what they're investigating, and the FBI was not being very clear on why exactly that they like seized the guy's phone and all this stuff, right? I just think that they're kind of just lashing out because they're upset that the Dems lost, and like the Dems and the people that are running the FBI, they're closely related to the Biden Harris administration. So yeah, I think they're just lashing out for the sake of lashing out. I don't really see this like lawfare really going anywhere. It's just making them look bad. So it's very sad that this is happening, but what are you gonna do, right? So
It's my one last point, just based on what you just said. I think that they're looking for their next Steele dossier, but they're looking for their next scandal because they want to like have a scandal ready in January for Trump. But I think they're just grasping at straws at this point. It's not going to be successful this time because the American public are fed up with the Democrats' message.
yeah, no, for sure. Tristan, Dom, either of you want to add anything to this story?
Yeah, no, I'll quickly add. So I'll go from like the bottom up. So I'll talk about like Elon and things like this. I'm not too familiar with the other guy, and so I'm probably not going to comment on behalf of that. And as for Elon, I think kind of what Andy said, he has like an amazing track record. So I'm sure he's going to do a fantastic job helping out in this matter. So I don't see that being an entire issue. It's just funny how he's kind of getting a little bit of backlash, but I guess that's to be expected. No one's ever perfect, and then people always have something to say. So I think that's just an example of that. But nonetheless, he's probably going to do fine, and he has a lot of experience. To comments about Joe Biden, I think yeah, that smile is like from like ear to ear. It's pretty funny. I'm sure he probably did actually just get kicked out by like the current administration, and he's really upset about that. And he's kind of glad that Trump came in. I'm sure he voted for him, and so did Jill too. I think we all know that, but yeah, moving on. And last but not least, I think the Polymarket thing's a bit crazy, like just kind of raiding the whole, like I think it was his house or something, and then just going in, taking his phone and everything. It doesn't seem like really, quote unquote democracy to me. It seems a bit like they're just trying to like get something out of like the results of like what happened. And I think the American people kind of speak for themselves and have voted for Trump. It didn't even seem like it was just Polymarket. I think there was a lot of other contributing factors to as well. So for that, I think this is just like uh too much on the matter. I don't think it was necessarily the correct or right thing to do, and I don't know if this is going to work well for the party on the left. But it is what it is, and yeah, that's basically all I have to say. So I don't know if that was the play. This Polymarket situation.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Tristan, would you like to add your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I on the regards to the poly market thing, I think that if this is actually politically motivated, I think that that's clearly a bad thing from my perspective. It just seems like overreach by the FBI on that front. But again, I don't know if we have all the details on what exactly is going on that front. So it is possible that there is real issues going on that need to be resolved, but it's not a great look is really what it comes down to it right now. Is like we're from the outside looking in, we're kind of looking at this going, why are you doing this really? Is it really what they're kind of saying that it's or I guess they haven't really given much of a reason at all. Is it really like a reasonable investigation, or is this retribution? It's so who's to say what it's actually going on at this time, but if it is political retribution, that's not ideal. That's clearly a problem. And then with regards to our buddy Joe looking super happy, I think that the assessment that he was not happy about being pushed out is probably pretty accurate. So I wouldn't be that surprised if this is a legitimate reaction of Joe Biden being like, well, they kicked me out. This is what they deserve, kind of thing. I'm happy. So I think that's kind of along the same vein on that front with the photo up. And then moving on to the DOGE of it all. You guys are all very optimistic on what is going to happen with this. I think it's, until proven otherwise, I think that the odds that this is a nothing burger are pretty high, or just another additional layer of government. Because, I know you guys are saying like Elon's great, he's going to do this and make it all better. You can't do everything, right? I'm not super familiar with Vivek, so I'm not sure what role contributions he'd be participating in per se on that front. But I think that this is something we're very much going to have to wait and see and determine how it's actually going to do based on what we perceive. I don't think I am nearly as optimistic on their ability to actually get much of anything done in general, and that pretty much just comes down to the fact that whether Elon is good or bad, reducing government bureaucracy is hard. It's not easy, especially when you only have 4 years to do it. So the likelihood that this just turns into something else where we're spending money to try and make everything more efficient, but not succeeding, and then Elon leaves and this just becomes another government organization that we're funding that effectively does a bunch of nothing. I do see that as a potential future that I'm like, well, yeah, congratulations, you got a government efficiency. And what does it do? A fat load of F all.
You guys should go follow the official Doge X page, which now has a gray check mark. So in case you guys don't know what the gray check mark means, it is a check mark that's only given to official government accounts or elected politicians and people like that, official government people or organizations. So it has a gray check mark. So yeah, you guys should go follow it. It's got like nothing on it right now, I don't think, or it's got like very few posts, but I assume that that's going to be where Elon's going to give his updates. I don't know if he's going to do it weekly or monthly or whatever, but it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I am very optimistic, admittedly, more optimistic than Tristan. I think that it will be a great thing, but we'll have to see.